Welcome aboard to the Thursday edition of the Hockey Debates podcast. I'm Bob Duff. I'm joined today by Sascha Paruk, the odds maker for sportsbettingdime.com, and Kevin Allen, the Hall of Fame hockey writer for USA Today. And as we are going to do every Thursday, today we're going to take a specific look at hockey betting and hot topics and trends in the sports betting world relating to the NHL. And today we're a month into the season, so we're going to kind of just take a look at who are the contenders, the leaders in the early race for the major NHL individual awards. And I'm going to pass it over to Sascha here, and he can kind of, for those of you who are maybe new to this whole sports betting thing, he's going to talk you through what a future book wager is and also how the money line works and what those plus and minus numbers mean. So take it away, Sascha.
Yeah, so basically, at the start of the season, in the preseason, sportsbooks will open up futures odds to win all of the major NHL awards. So we're talking about the Hart Trophy for MVP, the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year, the Vezina Trophy for Best Goalie, the Norris Trophy for Best Defenseman. And basically they will list out, depending on the award, about 20 to 50 candidates, starting with the favorites. And for people in North America, what you'll see is at the top of the, let's say, Hart Trophy odds for this year was Connor McDavid at around plus 300 was the number next to his name. And so what that plus 300 means is if you wager $100 on Connor McDavid to win that award, and he does, you will profit $300. So that's called a money line. And that's how that works. And the bigger the number next to the player's name, so McDavid was the favorite at plus 300, and from there I believe it went to reigning champion Nikita Kucherov at about plus 550. Meaning if you wager $100 on Kucherov, win $550 if he ends up winning the award. And obviously the bigger the number next to a person's name, the bigger a long shot they are. And so the sportsbooks are deeming it less likely that a player is going to win the award.
We saw last year, Kevin, all of the major awards were guys who'd never won it before, the winners, for first-time winners. Is that just an aberration, or are we seeing kind of a changing of the guard among the NHL elite going on these last couple of years?
Well, I wouldn't call it changing of the guard, but I would say that there are young stars kind of rising up, and guys who are just sort of entering in the realm of candidates, and it takes you a while. I mean, you not only have to establish yourself as a star, but the writers who determine the winners of this. It's almost as if they sort of expect players to serve kind of an apprenticeship. Like they need to do it for several years before they get serious consideration. So I think that happens as well. I mean, we may see that this time around as well. I've alluded to the fact that John Carlson is a guy that I think everybody has known as a top flight defenseman, but I don't think the writers have looked at him as a potential Norris candidate until probably last season, when I think he finished fourth in the voting, and now I think he's viewed as a more serious candidate than he has in the past. So I think what we're seeing with the new winners last year is just a reflection of how many good young stars that we have that are sort of making their presence felt.
Well, let's get right into it without further ado. We'll start with the Hart Trophy. I'm kind of the opinion if the Oilers keep rolling the way they are and Connor McDavid keeps rolling the way he is, that he's going to be tough to beat for this award. I think he's the odds favor him to win it, and I think right now reality favors him to win it. My sleeper pick, he's kind of taken a dent not of his own doing, but I really like Nathan MacKinnon to kind of come out and win this year. I thought Colorado certainly was going to be a team that would be among the elite. And he's kind of been on the cusp of being recognized with that elite group, as you say, Kevin, for the last few years. And it's like he served his apprenticeship. But now with both of his line mates hurt and Colorado's kind of got into a bit of a tailspin, you wonder, long term, is that going to impact A, his numbers, and B, his candidacy? So I'll throw it over to you, Sascha. Who do you like, and who do you think people should be watching as maybe a sleeper for the Hart?
I agree with what you said about McDavid. If the Oilers keep going the way they're going, I think he has an excellent chance to win the award. The reason I'd be fading McDavid is because I don't think the Oilers are going to keep doing what they've been doing. I really do think that they're going to start fading here down the stretch because they're playing McDavid and Draisaitl about 24 minutes a night. They're playing about 2 minutes more than any other forward in the league. I don't think that's going to be sustainable over an 82-game season. The player I'd be looking at for the Hart right now is David Pastrnak with the Boston Bruins. He's 23 years old. He's getting all the same sort of quality minutes on the power play that McDavid and Draisaitl are getting, but the Bruins are deeper. They don't have to play him 24 minutes a night for him to pile up the points that he's getting. This is a guy who had 1.22 points per game last year in an injury-shortened campaign, so he ended up, I think, with 81 points in 66 games. He's the NHL scoring leader right now. He leads the league in goals as well. And the Bruins, I believe, if I was picking a team to win the President's Trophy right now, I'd be going with the Bruins. And so I see this shaping up as sort of a Kucherov light campaign from last year, where the Bruins aren't going to get to 128 points. That's not happening. But I think you're looking at a guy who's going to be the leading scorer on the best team in the league. And that in terms of crafting a narrative, which, as Kevin mentioned, it's writers that are voting on this award. In terms of crafting a narrative, I think that's going to be a very strong one.
Kevin, I know you've talked up the Bruins and Pastrnak yourself. The only thing I wonder about him is, does it hurt having such good line mates? Do they kind of, sort of split the vote where people are going to vote for Marchand, people that are going to vote for Bergeron, and does that affect his candidacy at all, you think?
Not this year. Normally, I would say yes on that, but I think people are really impressed by Pasternak's start. And I think it is sustainable because I agree completely with Sascha. I mean, pretty much I could just say replay Sascha because that's how I feel. I think the Bruins are going to be a very good team the entire season. They could be the best team. Maybe not, but they could be. And I think Pasternak's going to be able, to continue on this, strong season. I don't think he's going to score a goal a game. I don't think he's going to end up with 82 goals, but I think he's going to be up there at 50-plus goals. And I think that's going to have an impact on the thinking of the writers. And if I had a sleeper, and he's really not a sleeper, but I don't think anybody's talking about him right now, the sleeper would be Alex Ovechkin, because I think the Capitals are going to be there all season as well. And I think at the end, he's going to have incredible numbers. And people are going to say, why is that Capitals team, so good still? And the number one reason is Ovechkin. He's the leader of that team. He's been the most incredible goal scorer. We talk all the time about how hard it is to score a goal, and Ovechkin just keeps piling them up every year. And the fact that he's in position now to challenge Wayne Gretzky is remarkable. I mean, that record should have been out of anyone's reach, especially in this era when it's harder to score goals. And so for that reason, I have him sort of hanging out. Originally, I liked coming into the season Nathan McKinnon. I thought Colorado was going to have an incredible season, and McKinnon I thought was right there with Connor McDavid in terms of impact on the ice. But I think the injuries have taken a toll there, and I think it's a little bit harder for this team to sort of generate offense. So, for that reason, I'm going with Pastrnak as number one and Ovechkin as my sleeper.
Well, let's move on to the Art Ross Trophy, and I fear we're going to be talking a lot about the same guys, and certainly it looks right now to me to be a race between McDavid and Pastrnak. I don't know that Kucherov is going to get back into it. Tampa Bay just can't seem to get out of this funk that they're in, and I would still, if I put my money on someone, I'd still, based on his track record, go with McDavid. But I might also be tempted to throw a small wager on Pastrnak because, as you guys say, he's certainly delivering the goods. And as you point out, Sascha, in an injury-shortened campaign last year, he was on pace for well over 100 points. So I think those are probably right now the two guys that I would look at. How about you, Sascha?
It's very hard to go against McDavid if he stays healthy. Past performance is the best indicator of future success, and you're talking about a guy who's basically going to be at 1, 2 to 3 points per game. Healthy. I don't think this player. I think largely undebatable at this point that right now he is the best hockey player in the NHL. The person I'd be looking at in terms of a sleeper, because you can get him at considerably longer odds, at least you could the last time the odds were up, is Leon Draisaitl, because they are on the ice together almost all the time, And as I mentioned, it's about 24 minutes a night. They are going to ride them into the dust until they can't skate anymore. And he currently has, I believe, a 3-point lead on McDavid. And at this stage in the season, given how often they're on the ice together and how often they factor into each other's goals, that's not an insignificant lead. And you're talking about a player who did hit the 50-goal mark last year. And yes, McDavid is more of a playmaker, and it's easier to hit 120 points when you're piling up the assists the way that he does. But when you're talking about the discrepancy in the odds that they were displaying, which was McDavid was sort of around plus 250 to win the award, while Draisaitl was about twice that, I don't know if it's twice as likely that McDavid ends up with more points than Draisaitl, given how often they factor into each other's goals.
Yeah, again, you can just replace Sasha because those are the exact two guys I was going to go with. And what I would say about Draisaitl is, Pasternak to me is a pure goal scorer, and I don't know whether he can sustain the points. I know he can sustain the goals, but he will get assists because he's playing on that line. But I think Draisaitl is a guy that it wouldn't take much for him to pass Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid, if everything is equal, will win it. But if he gets injured for a couple of games or something, Draisaitl could easily win that championship. So for that reason, I would go with them. And I like as Sasha said, the longer odds because they're pretty equal. I mean, you could certainly make a case, depending on what happens, that at the end of this season, we'll view Connor McDavid and Draisaitl as the top two players in the league. I mean, it's possible. I wouldn't say that now, but I would say that both of those players are in the top five, to be sure.
All right, let's. You mentioned John Carlson earlier. Let's talk about the Norris. I mean, certainly a lot of the traditional candidates for the Norris either are not having a great start to the year, or with teams that are not having a great start to the year, or maybe are on the wrong side of kind of the bubble in terms of experience. You look at a guy like Duncan Keith in Chicago, Drew Doughty in LA. Those guys are playing on terrible teams, so the odds of them winning it are not very good. And Zdeno Chara is probably not going to win one in his 40s. PK Subban's on another team that's just having a terrible start. A guy that I thought might have an outside chance, John Klingberg, just got hurt. And so I think I'm with you, Kevin. I think Carlson's the front runner, but a guy that I would watch and keep an eye on, I think, is Roman Josi in Nashville. I think Nashville's going to have a quietly great year. No one's really talking about them as a Stanley Cup contender or anything, or they certainly look like a team that could win the Central Division and be in the argument for the Stanley Cup. And he's a key guy on that team. They just locked him into a long-term deal. And I think there's a lot of quiet attention paid to him as well. And I don't know that he served his apprenticeship yet to be a Norris contender. I guess we'll see. But I would say I'd go Carlson 1 and Josi 2 in my picks. Sasha?
Yeah, I would absolutely look at Roman Josi. If I was betting on this today, John Carlson is plus 300 as the favorite. He's followed by Dougie Hamilton, who's second in defenseman scoring at plus 750. And then Roman Josi is actually down in fifth at plus 1,000. So wager 100, win 1,000 if Roman Josi ends up winning the Norris. And that's behind both Erik Karlsson and Morgan Riley. But I agree completely with what you said. He's playing on a Nashville team that I agree with you. I think they're going to end up winning the Central, even though they have a 5-point pull to the Blues right now. I don't think what the Blues are doing right now is sustainable. And so if Nashville ends up winning the division, much like Calgary ended up winning the Pacific last year when Giordano won, I think he's going to get a lot of consideration. When you look at his puck possession numbers, coupled with the points that he's piling up, he has a Fenwick of, I think it's about 57%, which is phenomenal, given the amount of ice time that he logged. So I'm with you there. If I was betting on this today, I'd be taking UC.
Who do you like, Kevin?
Well, for certainly I like Carlson. I think he's a guy that he's kind of. I think it feels like it's his time, and I think he's playing very well. And I think the way he's playing is sustainable for an entire season. He's playing on a good team, and as you mentioned, Bob, and I think it's a valid point. A lot of the top players that we normally associate, including Victor Hedman, Mark Giordano, they're playing on teams that haven't come out of the gate strong. So that'll hold them back. Now, where I disagree with you, Bob, and I'd be interested to see what his payout would be, is I do think Chara could win a Norris Trophy at 40. Now, this is the scenario that I would bring up. There's often a debate on whether the Norris should always go to the top offensive guy, because we certainly weight offensive production more than we do defensive play. You've seen that with Erik Karlsson's, victories. But, Chara is a sentimental favorite. He's beyond 40. He's made himself a vegan so he can extend his career. His teammates say he skates better now than he did when he was in his 30s. This Boston team, we've all agreed, is going to be a very good team at the end of this season. And you're going to look across and you're going to see Chara at like plus 45. And if he plays every game, and I think that's important, and if there's a loud drumbeat about how this award every once in a while should go to a defensive specialist, I could see it as a possibility. Now, do I think it's likely? No. But I think it's a possibility. I think given who he is and given the fact that he's still at a very, very effective player at his age, I could see sentimentality sort of creeping into the vote and to give him kind of an outside shot. But, I put him down. I do have Josi and Karlsson both ahead of him. But I wouldn't rule out. I think it's, not likely, but possible. If I had to lay a bet on a long shot, that he would be the guy I would take.
Well, certainly Nick Lidstrom did it well into his later years of his career, and even Doug Harvey won quite a few as he got older. So it's not unprecedented for it to happen. But I just wonder, are people going to use the fact that he doesn't log the ice time numbers that he used to as a negative against him and see that he's kind of...
Well, I think the bigger negative is he's not an offensive force. That's the rub. It would be better if, he was coming in at 35 points or, 40 points. If that was the case, I would say he'd have even a better chance. But that's not likely to happen. He's likely going to be coming in at 18 or 20 points with 3 or 4 goals and so forth. So it's going to be harder for him. But I do think because he's an effective player, because he's such a unique player, I think there is a shot as a sleeper.
All right, let's talk about the Vezina. And the Vezina to me is always a fascinating award because of the fact it's voted on by the general managers of the NHL and not the writers. So we've seen some real wild cards win it. I know Jim Carrey comes to mind instantly, and not the comedian, although certainly
it was pretty comedic when he won.
I was just going to say people had a good laugh when he won, except maybe Chris Osgood, who thought he should have won it. But it just seems like, does that make it a wild card? Because, certainly when you're talking about other awards, you can kind of converse with the writers and see what they're thinking. But really with the GMs, you really don't know. Like, they're so tight-lipped about everything, you don't really get a feel. Is that harder to kind of gauge who's going to win the Vezina, Kevin, because of that?
Oh, for sure. Although I've noted historically, general managers tend to look at the success of the team. You look, and historically they've gone with goalies who have done a good job of lifting a team, and I think that's what they kind of weight. If what has he done to help a team, particularly if that team was not expected to do well. I find that's the way they do it, but it is much harder because, we can, most of us know all the writers, and, we can kind of poll them and do a very unscientific poll and sort of get a handle on, enough guys are interested in Vasilevsky or Pekka Rinne or whomever. And then you sort of get an idea who the favorites are from the beginning. And a lot of guys, do a mid-season assessment as well, so you get a feel there about what the writers are thinking. But now because there is with the way social media is, a lot of us don't do later. I'm not going to write in February who I'm thinking is going to win the awards because the way social media is, people keep track of all that, and the league frowns upon that.
I think personally, John Gibson, I mean, if you're just talking about who's the best goalie in the league, I think you got to give it to him. But I just wonder is what Anaheim has been doing to start the year, is that sustainable? And Gibson's also had his issues with injuries in the past, so is he going to be able to play a whole season and stay healthy? But I mean, he'd be the guy I'd go with first probably. And Rene, with again, we talk about Nashville, a team that should be a factor going right to the end of the line as far as, you know, one of the top teams in the league, and that's got to help Rene's cause. Plus the fact that he already has a Vezina in his trophy case, and it always seems like if you've got one, it's easier to get considered for another one. Who are you liking in this race, Sasha?
Well, I'd be fading Gibson at this point. I think what Kevin said is pretty wise in that you need a good win-loss record. To some extent, winning the Vezina is akin to winning the Cy Young, where voters are still looking at, I'm not going to call them outdated stats, but stats that aren't necessarily indicative of how strong a goalie or a pitcher's performance is on the whole. And I don't think what Anaheim is doing right now is going to continue. They're giving up a ton of shots. They don't have a ton of offensive firepower. This is a team that's going to miss the playoffs, and I think it's going to be very hard for Gibson to win a Vezina if they do. The two goalies I'd be looking at right now are Tuukka Rask with the Bruins, because as I mentioned, I think the Bruins are going to have a phenomenal win-loss record at the end of the season. And their style of play is going to lead to a lot of light shot nights for Tuukka Rask. And so at the end of the day, I think his goals against and his save percentage, which are sort of the two, let's not say laziest, but two easiest ways to assess a goalie's performance, are going to look very good at the end of the day. And the second guy is Ben Bishop with Stars. They got off to a very bad start, but are playing much better lately. And the way Montgomery coaches is going to give Bishop the same chance to have an excellent goals against and a pretty solid save percentage when the season is said and done. And if the sort of low-scoring, defensive-minded Stars wind up second or third in the Central, he's going to have a strong case for the Vezina.
Well, at least I finally disagree with Sasha a little bit, so we have some contrast. I do like Ben Bishop a lot, and the other thing I like about Ben Bishop is, have you noted that he's, you know, obviously can't wear the C. He's a goalie, but he's become kind of the leader of that team. I've noted, you know, in the post game, he's the guy that seems to have the most interesting things to say about the team and what it needs to do and where it's going, and I think he's been the catalyst of their turnaround here. I mean, they were going nowhere, and suddenly, you know, Bishop kind of has kind of pulled this team together with his play and with his leadership. But I've got him down third. I just think I'm concerned that Dallas' record's not going to be good enough at the end of the year. You know, I'm starting to see some flaws there with this team. They still have trouble scoring goals. It should be better than it is, and it will. But, you know, Klingberg's out now 2 weeks, and he wasn't playing very well before he went down. So the two that I think I like Rask a lot, and I like Pekka Rinne, but I'm going with Pekka Rinne, just sort of looking in my crystal ball and looking ahead, because I'm a little concerned that Rask, you know, one of the things they talked about last season on their great run is how well rested he was. You know, they gave Halak a lot of games, and I think that's going to continue. And I think that the GMs are going to look at that, and I think he won't have as many starts as Pekka Rinne will have. And so even though the Bruins are going to win a lot of games, I don't know how many of those Rask is going to get, because I think they want him rested, because he was unbelievable last season in the postseason when he was well rested. So I'm going to go for my three guys. I like Gibson as well, but I'm worried that they won't. If somehow the Ducks can be, you know, a factor in the playoffs, he's going to be right there, because he's the most talented of the guys. But I think this is kind of a wide open season. I think the fact that Vasilevsky's team struggled out of the gate is going to hurt him. So I'm going to go with Pekka Rinne on a hunch. And I would say my number two guy will be Tuukka Rask, because the numbers will be good. It's just how many wins will he get? And then, you know, Gibson or Bishop in that third slot.
On a completely different note, an award we should give out, and the Bruins would certainly be the leaders, is goalies who break the most sticks over the crossbar. I think between Tuukka Rask and Halak, they might run out of sticks this year.
That's a possibility.
All right, now we come to the award that I always think is the most fun to talk about because it's such a wild card. I mean, the Calder, every year we have someone that they're touting going in. I mean, last year it was all Rasmus Dahlin, and they were right. A hot young Swede won it, but it was Elias Pettersson, who nobody was talking about coming into the season. And this year, all we've heard about is Jack Hughes and Capo Caco. And I am of the opinion that a Hughes is going to win it, but I think it might be Quinn Hughes because Vancouver's off to a tremendous start, playing way above their heads where anybody expected them to be. And Hughes is making a lot of fan bases question why their teams passed on him. He certainly looks like, they questioned his size, but he fits. He does it all. He's got a great head on his shoulders for hockey. His IQ is off the charts when it comes to the game. I really like him, and I think that he's flashy enough that he's got a real shot to win this. Who do you like, Sasha?
Yeah, I'm Vancouver-based, and he's been phenomenal. He reminds me of sort of a young Ryan Ellis, the way he's willing to sort of shift with the puck up there at the blue line, and he's been key to what the Canucks are doing so far, and I think what the Canucks are doing, based on the underlying numbers, they're out-chancing people on a nightly basis, and as long as they keep getting above-average goaltending from Markstrom and Demko, they're going to be considerably better than they were last year, and people are going to look at Hughes as a key player in that turnaround. But if I was betting on this award right now, I'd still be going with his brother. And very curiously, the last time the Calder Trophy odds were posted, which was a couple days ago, Jack Hughes wasn't on the board anymore after opening the season as a plus 225 favorite. And he got off to a very slow start. He was pointless, I think, in his first 6 or his first 7 games. But then he has 7 points in his last 6 games. And I think you're seeing him start to adjust to the NHL game. He's getting a lot of minutes alongside Taylor Hall, who's a former NHL MVP. And over the course of an 82-game season, I think that the natural talent that is there is going to lead to him being the leading rookie scorer. And the Devils are going to be better than they have been so far, as long as Mackenzie Blackwood plays slightly better than he has so far. I think they'll be a fringe playoff team in the East, and I'd just be banking on the pedigree of the younger Hughes.
Yeah, we still have 3/4 of the season left. Like, these players that got off to a slow start in New Jersey and with the Rangers, Capo, and Jack Hughes. I think there'll be factors at the end, but the guy I really like that no one's talking about, and I think by the end he'll also be a factor. Even though I think Quinn Hughes, I agree with everything that's been said. His impact on the team is not going to be lost on writers. I mean, if you start listing reasons why the Vancouver Canucks have gotten out of the gate better than anyone anticipated, he's up there in terms of being a factor for that. But a guy that I think we'll be talking about by the end of the season is Cale Makar in Colorado. I think his numbers will be good, get better as the season wears on, and he's an offensive defenseman, and that's a dynamic team. And so if you're looking for a sleeper, he's a guy that I kind of like. I think writers are open to taking a defenseman. I feel that because there's been a lot of talk about, Quinn Hughes, and before the season, a lot of talk about Cale Makar. I had him listed among my top 3, rookies that season, and so did others. So I think usually forwards have an advantage because of the numbers, but I think this year they'll be looking at defenseman Quinn Hughes, and I think they'll look at Makar as well.
Yeah, the only thing that gives me pause there is just looking at the list. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the last 9 years the award's gone to a forward. The only defenseman in there that's broken.
Right. Well, that's why I said I think it was meaningful, the fact that there was a discussion about defensemen coming into the season. I think people, so right out of the gate, I think writers are looking at them, which I think is important. But I do agree. It's an uphill battle if you're a defenseman, just because the points play a role, a significant role in your decision making. So, but we'll see. I think when we talk about this at the mid-season, I'll bet we're all completely different than we are today.
Pretty safe for the rookies. They're very mercurial.
Yeah, no, that's right. And you know, and then you at the 3/4 mark. I mean, we see it every year. You know, somebody gets, you know, much stronger in the second half of the season, and you know, they just sort of take off. So, you know, I bet there'll be. Mark my words. This is my prediction that there'll be somebody that none of us have mentioned today that'll be a major factor, even by the halfway point.
All right, gentlemen, and that's where we're going to wrap it up today. And thanks for the insightful talk on the potential for the awards. And as you say, Kevin, months from now, people will be mocking all three of us for how far off the mark we were. This has been the Hockey Debates podcast. I'm Bob Duff. I was joined by Sascha Paruk and Kevin Allen, and we're going to be here every Thursday, and you can catch us talking regular hockey stuff every Monday, and we look forward to you joining us, and thanks for being here, and have a great day.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Kevin.
Yep, thank you.